I'd like to call the regularly scheduled Board of Finance meeting for Monday, December 19th, 2016 to order. First order of business is public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board on any item on the agenda at this point? Hearing none, let's move on to item 2, and that is to approve minutes, in particular 2.1, regular meeting minutes of November 21st, 2016. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
And a second.
Second.
Okay, comments, questions, additions, deletions, etc.
Just a little clarification from me on page 2, second paragraph down. I was not giving an expert opinion on the safety of the PCBs. I'm pretty sure it was, I understand that that's the situation.
Okay. That's not one of your areas of expertise?
Yeah, Mike, I'd feel a little more comfortable if Mike was taking that position.
I read it and I agree with it.
All right, there we go.
Excellent.
Still,
Others?
I'll prefer the fuzziness a little bit.
All right. Any others? Not having had the benefit of being here, on page 4, under 5, and we'll probably talk about this a little bit later with Mary Jane when we get a moment. Under revenues, you mentioned that with regard to tax collections, there are some year-end adjustments that have not been made, and some of it is just timing on the revenue posting. Were any major adjustments made between then and now? Because I did notice that revenue is still off by about 4%.
It is part of my report later.
Okay, excellent, good. Just call me a straight man, I'll tee him up for you, you knock him out of the park. All right, anybody else? Hearing,
Move their acceptance?
all in favor?
I guess I'll
Opposed?
second that in case.
Just say it.
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 1? 2? That's right, sorry. Correspondence, 3.1, Standing Building Committee minutes. Did anybody get anything electronically? I don't think they came out, okay.
Not yet.
Not yet. Did they meet? Okay.
They did meet.
Yeah.
Did you get,
I was not at the meeting. I had a conflict at work.
Okay.
So I was not able to make it. So I'm waiting for him just like everybody else.
So
And I
we-
think November.
So we can't ask you any questions?
You can,
can,
but
but
you're going to be making them up and I want to make up answers.
Okay.
The board did get November's, right? Because there was
Yes.
discussion,
Yes.
so that was
there
part
was
of
a
November.
discussion last month.
Okay, that's what I thought.
good.
Thank you.
All right, 3.2, Pension Committee minutes. Anybody? Questions, comments, et cetera?
I had a comment.
Certainly.
On page 3, section 7, pension reports. Really, the first 3 sentences, Tom Bavona stated that the town of Guilford's portfolio has fared better than other towns. And then in the next line, Robert Hartman asked Tom Bavona, what is it that we are doing that the other towns are not? Tom replied that the bigger towns had very diversified portfolios. So, to me, and then Tom proposes the committee increase their large cap investment to stay in line. So, I think having a very diversified portfolio is a good thing, not a bad thing. So, I'm curious, I'm sure maybe they talked about it, but it's not in the minutes. That implies that we were lucky, frankly, if we were heavily weighted to some sector or type of security, and if that accounts for the outperformance. So to me, it's a little vague. I think they should.
Well, and they go on to push the point you're making. You're making your point. Below that, then the actual action was to move.
Yeah, 2% from real
estate
estate and 2%
into
from
a
large
large
cap to
cap.
large cap growth, which is de minimis, basically. If you are not diversified and if you are heavily concentrated in one sector, type of security, whatever.
If I may add, one of the things that I noticed, they tremendously underweighted growth and overweighted value. I mean, it wasn't like a 50-50 split, but it was like 75-25. And I made a comment at
You
that.
did at the meeting, I
Yeah,
recall.
Which, and it ends up that obviously financials are doing the best. If you look in terms of Dow Jones, I mean, basically it's all led by financials, and they tend to be more value stocks. And the tech part of it has not done as well, so maybe that's what they were talking about.
All right. And I'm always curious, and not to quibble, but, an adjective a change of an adjective can change the sentence dramatically.
Yeah.
Instead of diversified, he might have been saying riskier.
Or tactically
Well,
overweight, maybe.
If it's
or
more
overweight.
diversified, that
And he was
implies
just being polite.
less risky, frankly. And to me, I read this as we had a more risky portfolio and we got lucky. That's the way I interpret what I see on the sheet here, but that could be completely inaccurate.
Yeah, you're right, the statement, the fact that towns have a more diversified portfolio, and that's why we did well, that doesn't make sense at all.
No, so anyway, it just,
Then the other part of that statement, that we fared better than other towns, well, how much better, which towns? It's all very vague. The whole summary is very amorphous.
so
These are minutes that are capturing
I think they're patting
yeah.
themselves
an
on the
hour's
back
worth of
without
meetings.
facts.
so we can ask
Tom.
Ray Bauer to,
Well,
Give
we
us
get
an
the
update.
report periodically, too, of exactly what the investments are and the percentages in the various accounts. I mean, that does come around quarterly, I think.
did we get him that often?
Well, that's
I don't recall.
I've seen them.
It's worth a question.
Yeah.
To the board?
Send an email to Ray.
Just copy everybody? If you would. Thank you.
You want me to send the email? I'll send the
Yeah,
email.
I don't have a problem with that. Anything else on that? Item 4, review and accept the report of expenditures to the Board of Education for November 2016. Amy, welcome. Linda, welcome. Although we already said hello to you earlier, or most of us, and Peter didn't have the luxury of sitting in to do so. What would you like to bring to our attention?
Sure, the November financial reports for the Board of Ed. Our expenditures for the month of November were $5,140,710 and some change. Our expenditures and encumbrances through the end of November are essentially the same as last year, about 36%. The warrant we're submitting is about $2.6 million. There isn't really that much excitement in it. We are, as we discussed earlier, in the high stages of budget right now. And, some things to note, we did just complete negotiations with teachers and administrators, and we did move both these groups to the high deductible health plan, which now brings that to all of our groups. So that will hopefully, it will give us some savings in our medical for this coming year, which will help offset the salary increases.
You got it. All right, anybody have any specific questions?
Yeah, on the summary report, on the back page from the reconciliation, there's an item on there for reimbursements, there's a whole section, and there's a, relative to what I imagine that budget is, a fairly large number for reimbursement of football coaches' salary. Where's that money changing hands, from where to here? Where to where?
Yeah, the Gridiron Club pays
Oh.
for an assistant coach, and they donate the money, and then we
Okay,
We get the donation from them.
okay, nice.
I had a question.
Can I follow up on that? How many sports do we actually do that, where booster groups are funding coaches?
Three sports, baseball, football, and,
Lacrosse?
I won't,
Basketball?
no, it's
No,
not
it's not
basketball.
basketball. It's soccer.
Off the top of my head, no, I don't remember, and I don't want to give you a wrong
I
answer.
bet lacrosse.
Sure.
Yeah. Be a women's sport?
Tennis?
I'm not sure. I'll send it to you
Thank you.
tomorrow, which are the
Great.
three. I know two of them.
Good. Ken, you had
Yeah, I had a question about tuition. Linda, in your cover note, you indicate that the percentage of the budget expended approximates the prior year. But when you look at tuition, I know we made a big movement in the prior year, and it shows the same amount, but we moved a lot of money in the course of the year. So my question is, even though it says the percent expended and encumbered is equal to what we did last year, are we in fact going to be in the same position where we're going to need to move funds to cover tuition?
At this point, at the end of November,
Yes.
it was looking like it was gonna be about $140,000 short for tuition. Since then, we've had a couple other issues come up, and we had discussed these briefly earlier. Couple cases where we may have additional outplacements that we weren't planning on. So right now, I know definitely of $140,000 shortage for tuition. I have to see how the rest of these play out. And I do have a report that we can send out to you. I only have 4 copies with me
Yeah,
right
this
now,
is,
so.
this is the report we were talking
Oh,
about
this
at
is the
our
report
meeting
that the
earlier, which
earlier meeting.
I think is a tremendous summary.
very good.
And will take
Thank you.
substantial.
I have 4
it is.
copies, but that's all I have
Well,
with
pass
me.
them on, if people want to take a look at them. And you're going to send it to us electronically.
I will
right?
send it to you electronically
Somebody will
tomorrow.
take a look at it.
I did see this before. Did you see this?
Yes, thank you.
Do you know the total amount that we moved last year? I should know that, but I don't. About 300,000?
Tuition? I don't remember. I remember it was a total of about $1 million between all the shortage areas, but I don't
Right.
remember specifics. I can give you the transfer amounts tomorrow.
And that was net of the excess cost grant as well,
Yes.
right? Which, in our earlier meeting tonight, we talked about briefly that there's some concern that the state may not even fund at the 70% level.
And the calculation that you see on that report is figuring about 70%.
It's 70%,
It's figuring a
okay.
70% reimbursement at this point.
Good.
Which has been what the state has historically
It's been more
reimbursed at?
than that.
A couple of years
It's
ago, it was
been-
77,
It was 77, 78%,
So this is a more conservative
yes.
estimate? Okay.
Because we just don't know. At
Well,
this point.
yeah, in addition, with the plate, when students are outplaced, and even though the decision may not be ours, we are no longer going to be funded that
Funded,
money.
yeah.
This doesn't include transportation, correct?
That is just tuition.
Just tuition. All right, again, this is a great report, so I think
Thank you.
that'll help us.
No, you can keep that. I'll send it out electronically tomorrow.
Along,
Go ahead,
just following up
Jeff.
on Ken's question with regard to transportation, so the special ed transportation appears to be running at a higher pace this year than last year. Any reasons attributable to that?
It's depending on the facility, where they're going, what the costs are. I mean, we do bid it out, and the bids seem to be pretty stable. We do seem to be having more monitors in district buses. So there's more special ed monitors on buses
I
right
see.
now, which is, it's not a huge dollar amount, but it is an increase over the previous year, so we are looking into that. I don't have projections done for everything at this time, but hopefully next month you'll have better projection numbers from me.
Okay, thanks.
Quick question on capital. Site improvement seems to be going a little slower than this time last year. Any particular project or projects? Or, I mean, usually site improvements get spent to the end of the year, but it's a little bit slower by about 30%.
Right, we didn't use a lot of the funds to finish off projects this past summer, so we kind of told Cliff to hold on for a little while on doing things, and then we'll try and see what we can do at the end of the summer.
Inevitably, something could come up. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's one of the first areas that we look to
Of
freeze or
course.
hold when we
Right.
need to have.
Right. So it's maybe not a bad thing that we're at 50 and we've got a little bit there. Okay. All right.
Linda, water at 59% expended, I know it was a dry summer, fall, how much of that's attributable to irrigation?
There's a good portion of that is to irrigation. We just found out that the water company sent us an incorrect bill that was an $11,000 water bill for irrigation that was incorrect.
Incorrect in which way?
No, it should never have been
In our
that high.
favor?
It should never have been that
The one
high.
in the-
No, this was a new one that we just got.
I got one of those statement things too.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Jeff, with that?
we're going to have some adjustments to water. But there was some larger irrigation bills at the beginning of the year.
Okay, all right. special services up dramatically over where we were last year. Is that a result of some new placements, or?
No, actually, I looked at that, and there were certain bills that we did not pay in November, so
Last year.
last year.
So
So it's just a timing thing.
different.
There was one bill in particular that I looked at, it was a difference of about $10,000-$12,000 that we had paid more last year. We had paid through October, and this year we would only, we paid through October this year, last year we had only paid through September for this one vendor.
Okay. And one other line item, clerical billing is up about 4% over last year, from about 30% to 34%. Is there any reason for that? Was that part of the reclassification of some employees, or?
That one.
If you don't have an answer to that, you can get
Yeah,
back to me.
I'll get back to you on that one.
Okay. Anybody else? No? Must be a good TV program on this evening. Anything on the minutes? Hearing none? No? Good. Thank you very much,
Sure,
and we both have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank you. I guess I would just say one more thing, if anyone's listening.
Certainly.
We are deep into the budget season in an effort to be very transparent this year and give lots of information due to the referenda failures last year. We are meeting, we have 2 public meetings at the end of January, I don't know, 27, 28, 28, 29. It's on the website. Please come, hear information. You don't have to speak, but we really would like to hear input, and we really want everyone to fully understand what goes into the budget.
That public service
It is.
The PSA. All right, is there a motion to accept the bills from the Board of Education for the month of November in the amount of $5,162,369?
So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstained, recusals? None? Wonderful. All right, item 5, review and approve the report of expenditures for town government for November 2016. And I owe you an apology for missing your first meeting last month. Very unfortunate for me not to be here. You probably benefited from it because I didn't ask you to name questions, but welcome. Welcome. And I know these guys have already worked with you for a month, a meeting. Anyway, anything you'd like to bring to our attention?
Well, I guess I'll start with revenue.
There you go. There you go.
I did some additional research on the tax collection. We did have some adjustments for year-end that have been done. There were collections that came in prior to July that hadn't been attributed to the current fiscal year, so we made those adjustments. But the main reason you're seeing a difference in the percentage isn't that we're low this year, it's that last year we were high. Last year was actually the anomaly. If we go back 3 more years, the percentages were 55.1, 53.4, 53.7, for an average of 54.1. So actually where we are today is where we normally have been. So when we only look at 1 year to the next, that can sometimes happen. So
We don't have a spreadsheet big enough to give us that kind of stuff. But thank you for that clarification. That was concerning to me, only because the differential is nearly $3.5 million in terms of revenue difference between
Right.
this year and last year. And
right,
if-
and I just hadn't been able to delve into that
That's
a month ago.
Well, I was going to say, you know, it might take you a little while to find some of these gems, right? So, okay, well, thank you for that. Anything else you want to bring to our attention?
That's all on revenue. I'm not sure if you have any other questions.
Yeah, no question.
Okay.
Last month, I asked a question about fire department revenue, mostly fueled by ambulance, and it was low, and it still seems to be low. Actually, the spread seems to be even greater, and I wonder if there's some problem there, or if it's just the new policies and the new lag, because we've come to depend on that $800,000 or more in revenue.
I haven't done any additional research on that, but I can.
Because right now, we have 17%
Look,
in at 31.
Yeah, but
that's
it's
police.
running at a
Oh, I'm sorry.
950 pace because they run
Yeah.
a month late.
Month
So
late.
if you
Right,
take,
right.
so that's
39%, I'm
that's 4
sorry.
months' worth of data, and it's 317,000. So if you multiply that
They're right there.
times 3,
Right
you're
there.
at 948,000, which is 150 over what they're
Oh,
budgeted
so
for
okay.
the year. So they're actually on a run rate that's going to create a surplus of 150 for the year. It may be wrong, but that's the way I interpret what I see here.
You're right.
Yeah, I got
You're
the
right,
wrong,
Ken.
I was looking at the wrong line there.
Okay.
Okay.
No, they're a month behind, Ken,
Yeah.
Yeah.
just like youth and
Just like youth and
services.
family, that's right. Okay.
And the building department?
The building department, similar, we're a little bit behind in getting that information in, but they are expecting a large amount from, is it 66 High Street? Is that the name of it? That still
66
hasn't
High.
come in, yeah.
Yeah.
Some,
And I think last year's numbers were inflated too, because we had several projects that were contributing last year as well, so. Good. Anything else on revenue?
It's a relatively smaller numbers, but finance is up after many, many, many years of just depressing news there. Is that, I mean, the interest rates are ticking up, but that doesn't seem like that would account for that
well,
change.
I've noticed it's been over significantly the last few years. I looked at that myself, because
Well, because
since
the
that was
number
since
has
that was
been
my
driven down so
department.
low. Conservative budgeting, I mean, that was,
Conservative budgeting definitely in that line
but
item.
this year seems like it's, I mean, we're already at 90% of that item. Is there something unusual? Is there extra cash that's washing through?
Finance director.
See, I didn't even have to say it.
Good to have support in high places.
Yeah, I've noticed that that's been the trend the last couple of years, so.
Well, there's a couple people at this table and out in the audience who remember when that number used to be closer to $750,000 or $800,000 on a budget that was much smaller than it is today.
Look at our bond interest, it's a lot higher.
Yeah, bond interest is pretty high too, so you're right, it was a wash. Anything else on revenue? Expenditures?
Not too much to discuss on expenditures unless you have questions. I did just want to mention, under Human Services, we are over by $1,000, and that's because there was a payment that was not made last year. One of the organizations did not request the funding, but when it came in this year, we did approve that. So we were under 1,000 last year, and that's why it's over at the moment.
So we'll continue to see that number.
Correct. You will see that number. You will see that number from now to the end, correct?
Transfer at the end of the year. Mm-hmm. Others?
Nope.
No? What did I have? The things that stick out here are a couple of things. One, debt service interest, which is nothing that, is not something that we didn't anticipate, much higher this year at this time, based on payment, based on the
Right, I did
schedule.
talk about that at the last meeting.
The one
Sorry.
I missed. I was delinquent, yeah.
We did in the budget take a credit for the proceeds that came in, and so that is skewing the percentage
number.
as we go forward as well.
Yep.
So,
That's, what was the other one? Yep, that's it for me. Anybody else? Warrants? No?
I have just one question. The postage replenishment for the selectmen of $5,000 to the reserve account, did the reserve account pay, why is it to the reserve account?
I'm not sure, unfortunately.
Which one was this?
It's the general fund weekly checks, 1, 2, 3, I don't know, the seventh one down. I'm just wondering why it says reserve account. At first, I thought reserve account paid for it, so my original question was going to be, why are we spending money out of the reserve account that's budgeted? Because
that's
there is
the
a post,
vendor.
there is a postage line
Right.
in the budget, and then this is actually the vendor, which to me implies that the reserve account loaned the money to this account, and now it's paying it back. But I don't know, that's my question.
Sorry to jump in, but Pitney Bowes, when you send money through Pitney Bowes to put it on the postage machine, it goes through to the reserve account, Pitney Bowes. So the first line of the remit is reserve account, and then it's Pitney Bowes, and it goes to the postage machine.
So the money isn't going in and out of one of our reserve accounts?
No,
It's actually going in, it's
to
coming from the
Pitney
general
Bowes,
fund, but the
yes.
vendor is reserve account for Pitney
Slash.
Bowes then?
Yes.
Thank you.
Good answer.
Thanks, Linda.
There you
You're
go.
welcome.
You got a good
problem.
teammate there.
Gonna have to bear with me for a little while while I got these things.
Anything else?
Yeah, on the special fund weekly checks, there's a couple of items for the lighting at the stadium. Obviously, the big bill for Musco Sports, that's presumably the actual poles and lights themselves. And my question really is there anything else out there beyond that $170,000? We've talked a lot
Wasn't there
about this.
a like amount for the last month? I recall,
There were two. This is maybe the second one.
that's what I recollect.
It was more than this amount.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought we saw another
And then
line
there's
for
some
around
engineering
170
expenses
last
there?
month. I could be wrong.
The total number was supposed to be, what, 350?
350.
Yeah.
So there was spread out over these 2 months.
That's, well, I'd like somebody else to answer the question, but that's my interpretation.
That's how it's been paid. There were two payments like that.
So this is the second of the
Yeah.
two payments.
Whether there's any more, I
Punch
can't
list.
say
Okay.
at this point.
I didn't see our familiar name of Fusco this month.
Yeah.
Does that mean that we are completed with Fusco?
Could be.
Are we expecting anything more? Mike, would you happen to know that?
I'm looking at, actually, at last month's.
They're waiting for a meeting when you and I aren't here, Ken.
You know,
Maybe.
I can't really answer the question except for last month, in October, there was 125,000 paid to them and nothing this month, and it was more than that we still had outstanding to them. But
Right. That's what
I think it's just the requisitions are probably running a month behind with the building committee. You know, they meet and then it goes through the process,
The
so.
approval process, right?
Yeah, there's gotta be more, but just didn't hit this month. But I'm sure we'll be looking at it carefully next month.
I have a question on the Guilford Center for Children on general fund of over $38,000, and the description is a code, which I don't understand. So could anybody provide some clarification on that?
CDC fiscal year 17, quarter 2, would be my interpretation of that, right?
Yeah.
Center for Disease.
Control, yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay, it's the second quarter of 17.
You can bring that one back next, or email it out. If it's easier just to do that and email it rather than wait till the,
Yeah. It's a large number.
all right, any others? No? Let's go to medical benefits. Another relatively decent month in terms of, we're underneath our projected amount. And in November, we haven't been able to true up the ISL stuff on the November line item yet.
No, last month, we were able to get the information before you met, but
Right, not so this time.
we met with representative from Millman for our health today, and trying to make some strides to get that information quicker by providing that information online for us. So we're hoping to be able to get that information quicker in the future.
Sure, great. One question I had, down at the fund balance projection, fund balance at 6/30/16 estimated audited. Something in the back of my head says we were pretty close to that number, net of IBNR. As I noticed that you then take IBNR out, because I thought the surplus that we had projected at the end of June, and I got to go back and take a look at my
Yeah,
stuff.
I haven't made any adjustments to the IBNR, and
Right.
this was how it was left as of June 30, so I kept moving it forward.
Yeah, I want to go back and take a look, because for some reason, I thought we always used a number that was net of IBNR.
Okay, like I said, I was just following
Following what was already in place.
the same format as
That's right.
before, so we can take a look at that.
Good. Well, the good news is our projections this year is a surplus in that account of over $1 million. So That's good for the town's financial health, and apparently it's better for our employees' health, so that we're not spending that kind of money. All right. I'm gonna keep that out. Anything on building permits other than the fact that it's woefully low at this point? Golf course, anything on golf course? I had a question, procedurally. When we moved some anticipated money from fund balance or undesignated reserve, or, I'm not sure exactly how we did it, whether it's proceeds from last year's operating budget, surplus from last year's operating budget, to cover the golf course. That included, did that include an additional amount for this year? So that transfer will happen, that operating transfer will happen when?
It's happened.
We only show $30,000 operating transfer in through 11/30/2016.
No, it happened at the year-end audit.
Oh, okay, but I thought there was going to be a portion for this year's budget.
That's why the transfer was made above the accumulated deficit.
Right,
When Linda was here,
yeah,
remember we did, I think it was 505,
right,
which was
That's right
above
right, but what, no, that operating,
420
yeah,
that we had already booked.
right, but in the statement of operations, we're currently showing an anticipated income, an operating income or loss after transfers of $15,000. And we do show an operating transfer of $30,000. That was what was projected in the original 2016-17 budget.
Correct.
So there should be an additional operating transfer coming in to cover the anticipated shortfall for 2016, 2017?
Yeah, because that was taken into consideration.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense. This is still showing a deficit, but really, they anticipated the previous deficit.
Right, okay.
The
We
report
just,
needs-
we
the
just.
report needs to
right,
catch up.
But at some point, the comparative statement of operations will include another operating transfer?
I'd have to review that to see
Okay.
what they did last
You
year.
know,
I thought we already put the money in anticipation of there being a loss.
Right, and this is more of a paper trail, this is more of the statement of operations does not reflect the second $30,000 transfer.
But we've already allocated the money, correct?
I think that's correct. That's what I'm hearing, but it hasn't shown up on the
The
report.
money is
And
there.
allocated,
It just
how
had,
the actual mechanics
right, that's my,
can't,
yeah, that was my question, is the
Answer
mechanics to move it into this account have to take, unless we're just gonna let the deficit fall to the fund balance,
however the auditors want to handle it.
okay. All right. But I just, from the perspective, we're not getting credit for the fact that we,
But that's a decision to be made at the end of the
Next year.
2017
17
year.
fiscal year, okay.
But Ken is right, we did allocate the
Oh,
money.
I know we allocated it, but it's just that we have a statement of operations that doesn't reflect it, so it is still projecting a deficit position.
And it will.
It will,
It will,
but it will, at the end of the year, we'll correct the deficit position.
right. But we did make the provision for it.
I know we did. All right, thank you. Anything else?
I'm just wondering when we're going to get an update on capital. I think the last update that we got on capital for 216, Fund 216 was in February, and we got one in June for the other one, 217.
Are you familiar with those capital reports?
Oh,
I think June was the last one.
June, yeah.
June,
Yeah.
June, that's right. Was that the town one in June? Mm-hmm. And so the school one was in February.
I thought we had both done
I
it.
think you had all of them in June.
We had all of them at that
We
point.
did?
That was the last
Believe
one
so.
Sheila did, was in June.
Yeah, I have worked on the capital. I'm trying to reconcile the encumbrances from prior years. It's done differently than I'm used to, so that.
If you have
that-
suggestions on how, if you have some suggestions on possibly improving the way it's been done here, would be more than willing to entertain those.
We're hoping to bring Munis in to help us with some efficiencies in a lot of our work in a lot of departments. That would be one of them.
Okay. Anything else?
No?
Great. Is there a motion
But
to?
Ken, excuse me, Matt,
Certainly.
On the town side, there hasn't been much
Nothing?
in the way of expenditures on the town side as far as bonded capital expenditures since June.
All right, is there a motion?
There's no urgency to get that right now.
Well,
There hasn't been.
I would like to see a report, to be honest with you, but there hasn't been much in the way of expenditures in that regard. Because don't forget, every time we do award a bid, and there is an expenditure out of the bonded appropriations, it does come before this board. So it would be in the minutes anyway. So.
Except for the high school. And any of the school projects. All right, is there a motion to approve the bills for the town for the month of November, the amount of $2,171,734?
I'll make that motion.
A second, please. And a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Recusals? None. Thank you, Mary Jane, and you have a wonderful holiday season as well. Okay, item 6, committee reports. Ken, just a quick recap of the subcommittee meeting we just had with the Board of Ed? Or,
Yeah, sure. We've just had the first of 2 subcommittee meetings with the Board of Ed, and we went over the areas of the budget that they expect to show the greatest impact. And we generally have 2 meetings, one in mid-December and the other one in mid-January. We've been advised that we will be receiving the draft of the budget for 17-18, I guess we're talking about, and that we'll be receiving that right after the holidays. And then we'll have another 2 weeks to consider that, and then we'll be meeting with the board again. And this is a result of, this has been happening for the last 10 years, I think, where we have had this open consultation and collaboration with the Board of Education so that it's reduced the surprise level. We know what's coming, and we understand what's driving the budget. They did, probably the most significant thing they said today was the concern that they have, that's the Board of Education, over the excess cost grants and where this is headed on a state level. And there may be, since this is a very large number, where the state has traditionally provided the localities with subsidies for special education generally. We don't know where that's going to land, and that could have a big impact on the budget that they ultimately submit. So they're going to be submitting a draft to us in a couple of weeks, and then we'll have some time to review it and consider it with them.
Good.
So we are into budget season. I might also add that Ken and I were the members of this board who were at the capital improvement budget for the town. And the town departments requested something in excess of $2.7 million that they'd like to see, and the first selectman said that's just their proposal. We shall see. It's their wish list, right. But their wish list went to $2.767 million, and we'll see where that comes out. And I assume we are going to be having workshop meetings with the town
18th and 19th.
of January.
January, 8:30 in the morning.
18th and 19th, that's been set.
You'll get a notice from us.
Okay.
yeah, being unable to attend that, I would love to, I know we'll get it eventually in our binder.
You're right here.
There,
They had them ready for everybody. They've come with a carton for it.
We'll see you with an empty cart.
Thank you. Thank you very much for thinking of that. All right. Anything else on committee reports? I don't think so. Old business? I had one item, and this relates back to a conversation we had, I think it was the October meeting, and Ken was asking about what kind of other reports, additional reports. Unfortunately, I was prepared to talk about this a little bit at the November meeting, but when I didn't show up, it made it a little more difficult. I did pull the copy of the charter. I also have a copy of the Board of Finance regulations as they are. and thought maybe we could schedule somewhat of a workshop or something with Mary Jane.
Mary Jane, and
Right.
ask what's easy for her to produce. That
Exactly.
would help.
Exactly. So,
Us in
I
some
don't know
way.
whether we want to do a workshop with the whole, or just a couple of us. What's the preference on the board, in terms of?
I'd like to be a part of it.
Sure.
I think
Yeah.
invite
we would.
everybody and
Yeah, I think we would.
see if we can come up with something that.
You got it. Well,
Everybody would like to
I
have.
know you're, well, we'll try to do it during business hours. It probably works better for you. We'll see what we can come up with. And let's wait till after
Let's
the
wait until after
holidays.
New Year, yeah.
Okay, good. I just wanted to make sure that I had not
That's great.
forgotten that, Ken.
I hadn't read it.
I didn't think you would have. Anybody else with old business? No? New business. 8.1, elected official salary recommendation. We are required to review and/or recommend changes to the elected official salary every 4 years. I believe is that by ordinance, or is that by, I think it's, is it charter or ordinance?
Charter.
It's charter. Today, I reached out to Mitch to pull together some summary information, current information, historical information on what we've done with the salary treatment, and also comparative towns from region, as well as our economic resource group. Is it an ERG or whatever they're calling it these days? So that'll take Mitch a couple days to pull together. And again, I'm going to offer this to the board. What's the pleasure? Appoint a subcommittee, or would folks like to be part of a larger meeting to review that material and weigh in on it?
I think a larger meeting is.
So we're not going to take it,
Not
any action
tonight.
tonight?
Oh, no,
Okay.
no, no. And again, that was confusion between myself and Tracy. I wasn't clear in terms of how that went on the agenda, but it was.
So elected officials include Board of Ed,
No.
No.
No. First selectman.
so just first selectmen?
First selectman, Board of Selectmen, and registrar of voters.
Okay.
So it's those folks. And I think the registrars of voters,
We said that recently.
yeah, a couple of years ago, we adjusted theirs. It was out of the cycle, I think, that we made an adjustment, right? And that was based largely on the new responsibilities that the state had placed upon them, so.
When the optical scanners came along, it actually
Right.
created more work for them.
I thought we did it earlier this year. We just did it.
Was it this year?
Yeah, yeah, sure.
We started talking about it last year.
But we did it this year.
Correct.
Okay, good. All right, so, once I get,
It was the subcommittee last?
we did a subcommittee, but
We did.
it's, you
Yeah,
know.
I'm just trying-
who
just
wa-
for-
Does anyone want to participate or not want to participate?
I do, as you know, I'm of the opinion that the Board of Selectmen shouldn't be paid, so we can talk about that.
Right, and I'm sure we can have a full board discussion. If we do subcommittee, that's one thing. If not, what's pleasure?
I'm out for the whole group, but.
Yeah, I would too.
Okay,
that'd be
so
fine.
that'll be another meeting I'll need to schedule in January. That one, I don't
We might
think,
be able to
piggyback, yeah.
do it both at the same time.
Right, exactly. Let's try to do that. All right, I'll work, I'll try to pull together some calendars. I'll just pick some dates and see how they work, all right? And again, preference maybe latter part of the day for those of us who work out of town, so we could catch Mary Jane while she, no, we'll try to accommodate you.
We're early.
And then we could piggyback the second part of the meeting where you might not necessarily need to be there for the other one. All right? Anything else? Anything else under new business? None? Public forum. Anyone wishing to address the board? Sir, come on up. And for the way we do it is for the record, name and your address. Yeah, oh, he's done it before, yeah.
Steve RP, P.O. Box 230, Guilford, Connecticut. I know we have some budget meetings coming up, and there's going to be a forum for the education part of the budget. And what I've seen the past couple of years is sort of a whitewashing of the performance that we should expect for math education in Guilford. And what I hope to bring to light is that when you listen to, we think it's a good product. And for the most part, it is. We got good teachers, good administrators, the facilities are fantastic. It is a great town. But the math education could be better. And I realize that maybe we're not Greenwich, Connecticut, we're not Darien or these other ones, but the genetics are not better there. We're pretty much the same gene pool. So what does it come down to? Does it come down to money? Because that's, when you look at Paul's report, considering, or Bill's report, I'm not sure who wrote it, for what we spend per pupil, the indication is money. And so my challenge to you guys is it money? Or is it something else? Is there another variable that we're not paying attention to? Maybe they are right. Maybe it just comes down to money, and we just don't have the money to have better performance for mathematics. And if you look at the data that came out last year, which was the previous year's performance, with the $82 million high school, we had effectively 42% of the kids failing math. Now, that report was presented to you in the fall of last year, and it was presented to you a couple other times. And it's easy to get to hear that information and get glazed over because it's mixed in with English, the overall percentages. It's mixed in with other things such as what we pay per pupil, special need requests, all the other budget information that the Board of Education has to go through in order to educate a well-rounded group of kids. Okay, so I know it is challenging, but the fact of the matter is there was maybe a 2 or 3% uptick in performance compared to the year before. That's all it was. It could have been the fact that maybe right on Route 1 there's a place called the Mathnasium. It may have had nothing to do with what we did in the town for education. It may have been the parents doing more. Maybe it was the teachers, maybe it was the administrators. I don't know what it was. But teetering between 37% and 42% of the kids failing math has to be an unacceptable performance for a Board of Finance. I know it's acceptable to the Board of Education. Absolutely acceptable.
So, no, that is,
Yeah,
you're right on the
yeah.
statistics. But I have a question. It's been, if you look at the numbers, it's even in the patch, some of the articles that come out.
Well,
just-
we're all,
it's kind of a-
yeah, if we say there's 4 categories, and 2 of them are below the standard. The other 2 meet or exceed. Now, in my day, anything in the first 2 categories that don't meet or exceed was an F. It was the F word, fail. Okay? Meet or exceed. Right. Meet or exceed was passing. Okay? Those cut scores were determined by people who were part of a committee. I volunteered for 3rd grade in a certain area of math. Teachers and other people around the country for SBAC did the same thing. And the cut scores were determined what was acceptable and not acceptable. Okay? And the same thing went on now that the SATs are now part of the 11th grade protocol for evaluating students. It's just for the 11th grade, nothing for the 9th and 10th in a national type exam. Okay? And I'm all in favor of national exams. I'm not, our kids should be compared nationally. And when they can be compared internationally, why not? Okay, that way we know what we're doing with the money and with the education. So it all comes down to what's our expectation? What do we want our school system to produce for math performance? We're doing fairly well in English. It's America. We're in New England. We should expect that, right? But now, we have very challenging times economically for these kids when in 50 years, the kids in 2nd grade will be replacing the Q Bridge. Will they be qualified to work on an engineering project like that?
What is your proposal?
Well, the proposal is to find out where is the problem. Is it money? Initially.
I'm not sure that's the case. Let me tell you something. I went to a private school, Allentown Central Catholic High School, and basically we had no excess money whatsoever. We just were getting by. But when it comes to math, okay, they used to have a math Olympiad, so to speak. Mm-hmm. They always come in the top 1 or 2 of the schools in the whole Lehigh Valley. We are probably the most underfunded school. Of course, that's where I graduated from, and I still actually keep in touch with what's going on. That's very underfunded, but the performance is outstanding. So I say that there's something to do in terms of the people that go to school there. They want to learn. And money is not going to make a student excel. he has to have the initiative to go forward and
Well,
do
that's an
extra.
honest conversation we should have, because.
I don't know whether you could make that general, I don't think you should go out and say that our students aren't wanting to excel either.
Hold on a second. We're talking about educational policy here? That is not the purview of the Board of Finance.
No, I'm.
And listen, I'm not trying to dismiss your concerns, your comments. We share them as well. In fact, at a meeting prior to this meeting today, we heard the superintendent say that
Wants
one of his
math
budget
tutors.
priorities was math. That they are looking at
tutors.
math, not tutors, the math coaches, which they,
Well, I'm aware of it,
I figured you were, but they made that commitment to us that that's an important part of what they have evaluated.
It was
as-
last year, too.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, last year's budget sort of
The
got.
fact is, we're spending X amount of dollars and we're getting a certain percent failure rate. We're buying failure rate.
Steve, here's
Okay, versus pass rate. So you can't dismiss the cost, and that's why I'm at a Board of Finance meeting. I've been at Board of Education meetings.
Steve,
you know,
so
absolutely.
to your point, I agree with everything you're pushing for and have said. And in defense of the Board of Ed, they are pushing to have math coaches again this
Right.
year, which we've seen and heard before. I recognize that. The problem the Board of Finance faces is all we are able to do is approve a number
Right.
for the Board of Education. They can take that money and buy bathrooms with it.
Right.
We don't have any control over what they do with that allocation. So when they come in and request an increase of $5 million, they can say that this is what the money is earmarked
Yeah.
for, but they don't have to do that. So do you
Right.
have a recommendation as to how we can somehow influence or affect the way
Yes.
in which they get money spent on math?
Well-
Because we aren't able to, as of now, we don't have the
Yeah.
authority to tell
Right.
them how to spend the money.
Well, you know.
And by the way,
Yeah.
we don't have the statutory authority. This is not a local issue.
know.
We don't have the
I realize
statutory authority to tell them how to spend it. Ken's absolutely right.
Well, it's almost, even if this is an inappropriate conversation for your committee, and I realize.
No, it's not.
I don't think
It's
it's
not
inappropriate.
inappropriate. It's just, that-
What I'm basically asking is challenge them when they say it's a good product. Because, it does come down to numbers. And you were at a meeting there, Ken, you need to be aware of when numbers are being grouped together. And you guys look like you're all businessmen. I'm sure you're very good at spreadsheets and stuff. You understand percentages, okay? But one percentage you have to understand is how many kids are failing math. And is that acceptable for the amount of money we're spending? And that line item, if we were buying sidewalks and they were crumbling within 3 years, that failure rate would probably be unacceptable. So my question to you is, do we have what would be considered a norm for failure rate? Because we do in industry.
that would be the Board
Okay.
of Education's policies,
You know,
not the Board of
they'll use the
Finance.
term product. When I hear product, I hear industry. And there's failure rates that are associated with it, and there's accountability for it. And when do we say it's okay?
I think the Board of Education has already indicated that they are not satisfied with what's going on in math. So I think they've made that evaluation, and they are trying to chart a course to change it.
Yeah,
Is that an inaccurate statement?
statements are said like that, but the fact of the matter is the numbers aren't moving much. Okay?
That's completely
You have-
beyond my capabilities
in the
to
middle school-
understand
in the middle
or to
schools,
offer you an opinion as
In
to
middle
why.
schools, you have an average of 70% of the kids are passing, 30% are failing. That means you got some schools that are probably 40% of the kids are failing. Now, these are young minds that we're paying money to be educated. And it gets human after the numbers. So for any of you who had kids or have kids in those schools now, that's the reality, and we're spending that money. So when an administrator comes out, the head of the Board of Education comes out and says that's a good product, I have to disagree. And I hope you guys understand that's a disagreement with a lot of parents in this town that are paying taxes, that are counting on more than just the Board of Education or the administration or the teachers to say that that's okay. That's not okay. It'll never be okay. No matter how many people say it, it's not okay. It's a disappointment.
Can I jump back in here?
Certainly.
I am so glad you came up and spoke. I appreciate anybody coming here to express opinions, and strong opinions keep everybody sharp. I mean, this is wonderful, and I know that, you know, there's been a lot of questions, and, you know, it can sort of, you know, nobody intends to pepper you with any of this. This is fantastic. We hope to see you back, and we hope you encourage other people who have feelings about this or other issues to come back, because this is enormously helpful. So, with all that, I'm going to ask you, again, Ken seems to understand the information that you're using, not the information, but the basis for this information. When you say 37 to 42% of the students are failing, what is the source that you are
Those are the
citing?
national tests that the students took.
Say the word again?
The national test that the
The
students
national
take,
testing,
yeah.
so-
In mathematics, yes.
At what level?
Well, they take 3rd through 8th, and they take 1 in 11th grade. 11th grade flipped to a different vendor this year.
Okay, and that's an average
So
score
these are
for
the-
all of our kids, is 30% of our kids are not meeting the national
I
standard.
don't remember the exact number,
Yeah,
but
three
it's
through-
not an impressive number.
Yeah,
And where are we,
What is a
where are we
normal-
on English?
What is a
like-
typical school district? So my question is, where are we on the bell curve of other school districts with those same numbers?
To the same ones you referenced earlier.
Well, okay, so we're better in New Haven, we're better in Bridgeport.
No, I'm not interested, but tell me about North Haven, and tell me
Yeah, I'm
about
so-
Cheshire.
We're probably better in Cheshire, better in Hamden, okay? Not as good as, you know, maybe a few up the coast. Certainly not as good as
So-
what's going on in
and-
Fairfield.
And I don't mean to just
County.
compare us to those towns, but I mean, in order to understand what those numbers mean, you're applying the word failing to anybody who's coming in below meet or exceed, and I will look at
Right.
this information you're providing, because I can't emphasize it enough, how much I appreciate somebody coming in to poke at a soft spot. But I want to understand what it means if a student comes in below meets or exceed. What does that testing agency interpret that to mean, and what does our Board of Ed
Right.
intercut that to
Well,
mean?
those are
I will ask them, and not
cut
try and
scores set up
influence.
by people who are professionals in the industry to figure out what a 3rd grader through 8th grade should know at a certain point in time. Okay? What would be acceptable for, you know,
Right.
those areas as the math builds through the curriculum.
At the sake of extending this conversation beyond where it probably should go, my understanding is that whenever you change testing,
It's hard to compare.
it's A, hard to compare, but B, it usually requires some kind of adjustment in the teaching if you are teaching to tests. So is that part of the discussion that's going on at the Board of
That discussion
Education?
happens amongst people who don't understand mathematics, and especially where it leads into industry. You'll hear that from English lit majors, you'll hear from humanity majors, psychology majors, communication majors, but people from science and engineering aren't confused. Okay? Now, the vendor they picked up, the state of Connecticut, to do it is the same people that make the SATs for colleges. They're qualified. They should know what someone in 11th grade should know. Okay? And that's 37%.
I may not have said my point well enough, is that
Yeah.
there is a group of people that say we need to teach to the tests, and that has been going on for a long time so that we can have, but my viewpoint is probably a little bit different. We need to teach fundamentals. There are core principles of mathematics that need to be taught regardless of what test you are applying, right?
Well, that's true. Teaching to the test, there's all these phrases that are used in education. Teaching to the test, depending on how you say them, they become derogatory for one person and they're positive for another.
Right.
Teaching to the test, if it encompasses what was part of the curriculum, why not? Okay? When it comes to mathematics, people take a certain slant, okay? Because it's difficult, let's face it. It's probably one of the hardest subjects you have to master to get out of high school. And most people struggle with it. Even people that are good at it will struggle with it. So, you know, when you have administrators and Board of Ed people who aren't from that community, they're going to use those phrases in derogatory ways. They're going to say, drill and kill, we don't do that anymore, which is the same thing as memorizing multiplication tables. Not a bad thing to do, but for them, it's drill and kill. So it all depends on, you know, who you are and what your position is. The fact of the matter is, they kick high and sell the national tests. The Board of Education Administration, we all bought into it, we paid for it. We pay taxes as members in the state and as town people. Okay, they're finance issues, we paid into it. And then when the results don't come back as good as they thought maybe we could, even though they warned us they weren't, okay, try to soften the blow, and then they want to run from it. Well, it's a national test, and it was a valid test. And the data is what it is. So what do? We say it's a good product still? That level of percent people failing? I don't think so. And they come to you saying it's a good product. I can't always get to the meetings. I travel a lot for work, okay? But, when I'm sitting in the hotel, I'm watching them.
Well, the question is, there's 40, on a global basis, there's 40 countries that have done better than us, the United States, in math. It's my understanding, since Common Core came into play, we have dropped two positions in terms of world, global.
Or we stayed the same and they got better.
So the question is, what are they doing? What is it that, if you want to get better, obviously you don't like the results.
Yeah.
What are the other countries doing that we're not doing?
Well, they're doing more of it, is what they're doing. Because math, like anything, whether it's musical instruments, you have to do a lot of it.
Repetition.
You couldn't do your jobs here as a Board of Finance if you just scantily went through it.
So why aren't we doing the same thing?
Well, because it's not viewed as something that's important. While we say it's important, we don't treat it as important. And we want students that are well-rounded. No kid has an edge to get a job anymore. Everybody's going to be well-rounded. And while that's not a written policy, it's the effective policy. So when these kids go to graduate and they go into college, there's no wonder they got to get remediation. So that's more money we're spending that our tax dollars didn't cover.
Well, we're not getting.
But just to bring it back to a point that was brought up earlier, at least in the conversations that or the meetings that I've attended, the Board of Education and the administration do want to try and improve the math instruction at the schools. They're looking to hire professional development in those areas.
We hire Spanish teachers, we hire music teachers, art teachers, gym teachers in the elementary grades, but we don't have a math teacher. Now, they'll counter, they have general studies teachers that have a certificate to teach. But what I'm proposing, which gets back to the point about coaches, and I talked to Paul about this, and I was disappointed we lost a coach in the budget last year. And he's going to fight for it this year. Great. Okay? I don't want to see it cut again. Okay? But ultimately, what we need, and we need to prepare for it budget-wise, is math teachers, certified math teachers, the way we have in 5th and 6th grade, in 4th grade. That way, there's someone in the elementary grades who is from math, who has a math degree. Now, someone with a psychology degree or a Spanish degree or communications that went on and got a master's in general studies for teaching, that's fine for many subjects, but it's not for mathematics, and it will never change that number. And you have to be honest with yourselves. If we can have gym teachers and art teachers and music teachers, why would we not have at least a math teacher in 4th grade to represent what's going to go on before those kids get up into the middle school? It's an oversight. I know it's standard and it's the norm for a lot of places, but we will never, ever get close to being #1 in mathematics in the state of Connecticut. All grades, girls and boys. That should be the commitment. Not coming to us with, well, it's a good product, whitewashing it with English, because that's high performing.
But we have
But
a
the-
shortage of physicists and people. with
Absolutely,
quantitative-
so we perpetuate the cycle.
But
Because we
I'm just
don't-
wondering, though, whether or not kids nowadays would rather take an easier way out as opposed to, because physics and a lot of the quantitative type of courses, algorithms and so forth, they do require a lot of work.
Yeah, they do.
And-
But there is a reward at the other end, job-wise.
Well,
And
right
there's a
now,
big
we're
demand.
importing them. I mean, basically, the people that are getting these visas to come work in the States have those type of, educational backgrounds that we don't have.
Yes, Mike.
Say something?
Sure.
Only because I'm the only one who hasn't said anything yet, so now I feel obligated. We had our Board of Finance joint meeting this evening, and over the last 6 months, if not more, to reiterate what was heard, the Board of Ed, in our understanding, knows that math is an issue. I don't think that, now maybe they've said, or it's been interpreted that they have a good product. I think what we've heard is there is a lot of value to the product that's produced. We could always do better. Is it a money issue? Well, last year it was. And, we talk about how do we get people out to vote? What's the issue? Maybe this is a talking point. Maybe math and having a percentage that is below average, failing below average, D, C, whatever it is not acceptable. And if it's not, then the community needs to come out and they need to vote in favor of a budget that would support more math coaching, which would then get you to the level of maybe an expectation that this community deserves. So I think it's a balance of both, but to bring it back to the local end of, forget about the national, what international doing, that's important. Sure. But to say that the Board of Ed is putting a blind eye to it and saying, well, we have a good product and we're fine. I've never heard a member of the 9 people on the Board of Ed say, our school system is great the way it is. They're always trying to get better, and if math is not where it needs to be according to this community, then they need to come out and speak in favor of
And
it.
they have, and they've been shunned and alienated. There was 100 families over the past 3-4 years that have vocalized it, absolutely. Okay, that's why I'm here.
I know math is an issue, but this is the first time I'm hearing 100 families came out for it
Okay.
because
Well,
again, I'm going back to the budget. When
You
you
can
have
ask
3
Paul,
failed referendums,
he
you have
held
2
he
failed
held a
referendums.
meeting at the middle school just down the street.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I'm going to say about 3.5 years ago. And it was mostly over mathematics and high achievement education for math. And the points were clear by people that were chemists, physicists, biologists, engineers, technologists. People who live in town who come from that industry understand the importance of mathematics. And frankly, the kids that are, the numbers are being pulled up by the parents who come from those communities of that intellect, teaching math to their kids. Okay, so if they stop doing the teaching, where do you think those numbers are going to go? Okay, now in the richer towns, the wealthier towns, they probably use more tutors, private education, to supplement what's going on in the public education. Around here, you have a lot of parents doing it. Okay, and it is a successful way to go about it because they're not going to let their kids suffer. But the fact of the matter is, we have voiced it, and it's kind of listened to. And frankly, it's insulting after a while to hear it's a good product, because it's not a good product for math education. And they should be talked about separately when we're, instead of aggregating what that effect is for money versus education. Frankly, at this point, I would like to see a separate administration for mathematics, the School of Math for Guilford. That's where it could go. But we're going to struggle with 37 to 42%. Okay, so I could ask for the nth degree, which is a separate Board of Education, separate administration. One administration, one Board of Education for things that are non-math related, and then administrators for the math program. That would be the extreme. But if we could get coaches for 4th grade, for the elementary grades, and finally get math teachers over there. I mean, that shouldn't be too crazy to do that.
If I could just finish my thought, I just want to, based on what Mr. Federici said, I appreciate you coming out here, and I think, if you come out here, this is the first time this has been addressed to our board, and maybe we don't have the purview, but maybe this starts something that maybe this year, maybe we'll get the math coaches because there's a budget that will support it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Great.
Have a good holiday season.
Thank you for coming.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? I'd like to wish everyone in the audience, as well as my fellow board members and their families, a wonderful, healthy, happy, and peaceful holiday season. And thank you. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Bam, look at that.
There you go.
Day 43.
Okay.